offer our prayers for all of those parents who are taking a well-deserved time this morning to recover from yesterday's adrenaline bomb. I know my own nephews were up at 4:20 in the morning yesterday and woke everyone in the household up. Um, so today, also speaking of just recovering from yesterday, or having enjoyed yesterday for the time, for the holy time it was supposed to be, um, I'm not preaching a regular sermon this morning. I was going to spend it writing something really fire and brimstony, but I thought I'd be gentler. So today I'm not really preaching. I'm going to invite us into an exercise of Lectio Divina, or sacred reading. So I will read through today's assigned Bible lesson 3 times. Each time I'm going to invite you to pay attention to things that stand out to you, that rise up to your consciousness. After we do that, I'll offer one or two, we'll see what the time is like, 1 or 2 reflection questions suggested by the Reverend Sarah Speed from the sanctified art materials we've been using this season. And we can discuss or simply meditate on them as the mood strikes. But first, in keeping with our tradition, I do have a first reading that is not from the Bible. It comes from Joy Harjo's recent memoir, Poet Warrior. She starts, this is just a couple of paragraphs I'd like to share. She starts by reflecting on a poem that spurred her own desire to write poetry. So it's a brief meditation on finding her voice, because today's Bible reading is about a moment when Jesus claimed his own voice. I thought they paired nicely. This is what Joy Harjo has to say. Though I loved poetry all my life, it wasn't until poems like The Delight Song of Tsoi Tali by N. Scott Momaday that I turned to the making of poetry. I should add, if you're not familiar with Joy Harjo, she spent a couple of years as the poet laureate of the US, and she is the Muskoke people. So she's indigenous and offers that voice in poetry and the native experience in all of her writing. And she's like Momaday, I came to poetry as an artist who painted and drew, and both Momaday and I have a love of those traditional rituals that place the speaker or singer into an intimate relationship with a place on earth, a people. I believe every poem is ritual. There is a naming, a beginning, a knot or question, then possibly revelation, and then closure, which can be opening, setting the reader, the speaker, or singer out and back on a journey. I can hear the tribal speaker in his voice in whatever mode of performance. And this is the part that really rose up to me. When I trust my voice to go where it needs to be, to find home, it returns to where it belongs, back to the source of its longing. My voice returns to the sound of the voices of those way back who made an imprint on this earth. I hear the Arkansas River and how the waters flow to our east, to our homelands. I hear my father's cousin from Okinawa, the barrel racer, Donna Joy Harjo. We always reminded each other of how we both sounded like our beloved aunt, Lois Harjo. We inherited her voice, which was as deep and wide as the river home. When I write, those old voices inspire me and surprise me with what they know. Maybe that's how most wisdom works. Sometimes it can be corralled into print in languages, in books, but it lives more abundantly when spoken and welcomes a place to live on earth. So moments of finding her voice. And then the other reading is the assigned Bible reading for the day from the Gospel of Luke. At the beginning, this is the story we get of Jesus's childhood in the canonical Gospels. Jesus, I know we just celebrated his birthday yesterday, but here we're jumping into his tween years. Now, so I'm going to, again, I'll read through this 3 times. The first time I will invite you to pay attention to any words that stand out to you from what I'm reading. You can, if you've got pen and paper handy, you're welcome to write them down if you like, or just let them rest in your awareness. After I'm done reading, I'll leave a moment for those words to kind of percolate. If you feel like putting any of the words that jump up to you in the chat, you're welcome to do so. The first reading. Now, every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in the house of God?" But they did not understand what he said to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. And I'll leave a moment for you to sit with any of the words that spoke to you. And again, if you'd like, put them in the chat, and if not, don't. Thank you for those. Second time I read through, I will invite you to pay attention particularly to emotions that stand out to you. So listening for emotions this time. Now, every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in the house of God?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. the emotions this time that rise up. I love all those. Thank you. Um, and the third time through, or the terror, yes. The third time through, I invite you to pay attention to the actions that stand out to you. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in the house of God?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years, and in divine and human favor. So again, the actions that rise out to you. Searching, finding, scolding, listening, asking, terrifying search, asking questions, returned, stayed, searched, sitting, asking, went up as usual, a day of return, retracing steps, listening, confrontation, rebuke, obedience. Thank you for all of these, for imagining yourself into the story. And I'll offer these two questions for reflection, which again, I'll welcome you to put a response in the chat or to come off mute and offer responses if you want, or you can just reflect on them for yourself or write them down. But I'll ask them and then I'll put them in the chat one at a time. The first one is about Jesus' language. Jesus refers to the temple as God's house. In your experience, has church provided you a sense of home? If so, how? If not, why not? And what seem to you the most important things churches need to do in order to provide a sense of welcome, safety, and security? It's kind of a complicated question, so it's there in the chat. I'll give us a couple minutes to reflect on this. Again, if you want to speak up or put something in the chat, you're very welcome to. And if you want to just reflect on it for yourself, that's okay as well. Thank you, Dave. That's so good to hear. In case anyone's not seeing the chat, Dave has offered Chestnut Hill feels like home to me. And Linda says, this church has been a home to my children, a significant, safe, and sacred place as they have grown. Heidi, from a very young age, church felt like a place where I felt special and knew I was loved, not only by the congregants, but also by something greater than us. Our particular church feels like home because it purposefully welcomes all, embraces diversity, and seeks practices to be more inclusive. And Ruth offered through support of increased understanding, expansive acceptance. Melinda, a safe haven for artistic experimentation in worship. And Joe Vandenberg, been in churches where we felt cared about. Chestnut Hill, we feel cared for. Cindy, makes me feel welcome, safe, and calm, gives me hope. Jamie, this church has provided me with a sense of home. Most important things, acceptance, welcoming all, chances to meet and talk to people, acceptance of diversity. I'll offer the second question at this time, which you're free to ignore it and keep reflecting on the first one, or go along with this one. But in the story, we get a glimpse of Jesus coming into his own self. He's on his own, listening and asking questions, finding and claiming his voice, like Joy Harjo, I thought. So what spaces have allowed you to be who you are truly called to be? Where do you feel the freedom to come into your own being and claim your voice? And what is it about those places that lets you do that? I'll put that in the chat again. Terry says, when I feel loved and accepted as I am, that it's okay to just be my imperfect self and I will still be accepted. Heidi says, in nature, and particularly on long jogs in nature, is where I listen to my thoughts and the world around me. Those clarifying moments give me the courage to claim my voice, which I find myself using for others, my children, my students, the oppressed. I'll say as a as a preacher who's preached in multiple contexts, I find my voice more authentic when I am doing my preaching amidst people who are good and open listeners. Ruth says, the gentle provision of questions and the opportunities to pursue the answers. And Karen says, connection. And Rhoda, with people, when I take risk, I am not rejected, rather valued, even invited to share more of me if I want. And there's a regular practice of that amongst us, includes others risking and welcoming too. Growth keeps happening. Thank you all for this. I think some of you might still be reflecting. If you're writing things, feel free to keep putting in the chat. Jamie says, church, my work with my family, nature, with nature's creatures. I will suggest we can move next to communion, and I'll invite us, whatever is still percolating from the questions, to be like Mary and treasure all these things in your hearts. Thank you all for sharing these things. They are all of God's good news this morning.